Hi guys, welcome to the Art of Healing podcast. I'm your host, Pearls.
And I'm Paris.
And today we're going to be talking about feelings and expressing yourself properly.
All the good stuff. So last week we spoke about trauma in relationships, more specifically in friendships. And of course, all the stuff that goes into that. But this week we want to address feelings. I think this is kind of the crux of healing when it comes down to it. When we think of healing, we think of a top-down approach, going to therapy, talking about everything, revisiting the past. And it has to be something that's figured out in the mind, right? If only I can understand why the people did the things they did, why did the stuff happen to me, why I went through what I went through, then I can heal and get through it. The problem is that's only half of the puzzle, and it's actually the puzzle that doesn't really need solving. The part that does need solving is how you felt when these things happened, and also how you feel about these things happening. When it comes to that, when you tell someone, hey, you need to feel more, we get stuck because there's a massive problem there, isn't there? We don't know how we're feeling most of the time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this goes back to like childhood. I think a lot of the times the reason a lot of people don't know how to feel or how they feel or what feelings they're having is because they were never really allowed to have feelings. So I think for a lot of us, like I'll give you an example. A lot of the time boys are told not to cry.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you get older, it creates this idea of like, I need to be tough. I need to be a certain way. And if I cried, that makes me not tough. It makes me less of a man. It makes me, less male or whatever. But that's the crux of it. And I think a lot of these feelings, and it's not even just for boys, like I was told not to cry as a kid. So growing up, I had a real issue with like crying and feeling sad and having those emotions because it was heavily put into me, do not cry. You're not allowed to cry. Or if you're crying, you immediately got in trouble for crying. And I remember it's so funny when I look back at it now, but I remember I was crying once because I was upset about something.
Yeah.
And I was told to stop crying. And I was like, but how can you ask me to stop crying? I'm upset. I'm obviously going to cry. I'm not going to be happy about this situation, whatever it was, something ridiculous, like not being allowed to play out or going to my grandma's or something. But that and that was the reality of it. But I was told in that scenario and many other scenarios, stop crying. And I think for a lot of us, that's where our relationship with emotions is kind of formed, is when we're younger.
Yeah.
And how we perceive certain emotions and also just generally is really dependent on the environment that we grew up in.
Because if you think about when you're a child, not only are we being told, for example, not to cry, don't express this emotion. Because I guess on one hand, maybe either our parents see it as a weakness and they were taught that way, or on the other hand, maybe they can't handle your emotions or how it makes them feel that you're sad. So in order to help themselves or kind of avoid the situation and what's coming up for them, they stop you from feeling so they don't have to feel, because unfortunately their parents didn't give them the space or teach them how to heal as well. So this is where like generational trauma comes in. You start learning these programmings and these conditionings from your parents, who learn it from their parents, who learn it from theirs, and it just goes through the generations where you just keep perpetuating this cycle of unadaptive behaviors that are just not going to help you in situations where actually your body just wants to feel. Your body just wants to feel the emotions coming up. Like, I think for me, I was never told not to cry, but I never saw anyone cry. My mum never cried. My dad certainly never cried. They never let me know that they were sad. They never let me know any of these things. Like the first time I saw my dad cry wasn't until I was an adult, and it shocked me. And same for my mum as well. Like I was a lot older the first time I saw her cry. Like crying wasn't something that happened. I'd see things that would happen that I'd think, oh, like you probably should be crying now because like I want to cry, but like you're not going to cry, so I'm not going to cry. So, and then again, I got taught don't cry. Plus, society as a whole, boys don't cry, it's weak. You need to be a man up. All these things get ingrained into us. And what is it teaching us?
And then they wonder why men's mental health is so bad.
Yeah, because we grow up being taught that we have to just get on with it.
Yeah.
Like society as a whole is like that, but especially it's ingrained in men. And unfortunately, I say in the last 10 years, even now it's getting put onto women. And you've got this whole like, boss babe mentality.
Yeah.
Anything a man can do, we can do. Like, we're just perpetuating now into women that they should ignore their body and how they're feeling and then just concentrate on getting ahead, working as hard as possible. Work, pressure, stress.
Yeah, I'm all for like chasing your dreams and having a career and all that stuff. But like, we are not built like men. We have a different cycle to you guys. We don't do it in 24 hours. Sorry, Molly May. You know, we're on a monthly basis. Our hormones depend on our hormones dictate our energy levels and where we are emotionally and mentally. So we're not going to be on the same vibe as men. So it's interesting that is being instilled into us a bit more now. And seeing how, and you know, a lot of women are having hormonal issues. This is like a growing thing.
Because they're trying to compete with a system or a way of doing things that their body isn't built for.
They're biologically not built for,
and then to add to that, we're then both genders ignoring the way we feel, which again, our bodies are not built for being in a state of not feeling. Because when you're not feeling, what are you doing? You're suppressing the energy that wants to come out. Eventually, that energy, it doesn't just dissipate in your body and get released. You have to let it come out. And if it doesn't, it turns into something worse. This is where you might start feeling fatigued all the time. You're having, you know, a full night's rest, but still waking up tired. Well, the reason probably for that being is because you're under such stress from the emotions that you're carrying that you're not expressing. Your body is drained from it all.
Yeah.
And this is just from day-to-day life. This can just be from you going to and from work.
Well, this is the thing, because like for women, for example, we're on a hormonal cycle, let's call it. Yeah. So our hormones peak at different times in the month. So if you're suppressing how you feel, and then on top of that, you're doing this whole stress, I'm going to go at 100 miles per hour the whole month, then you're double stressing yourself out. So you're going to have a dysregulated nervous system. Your hormones are naturally going to be out of whack because you've put so much stress on yourself, mentally, emotionally, and also physically on your body. And that results in lots of other issues further down the line if it's ignored for long enough, which looks like not being able to sleep, having complete hormonal imbalance, and so on, as we know.
All the great stuff.
All the stuff.
That we question mark as to why is this happening to my body? What's going on? The doctors are doing all the tests and they can't find anything. Well, it's because of your lifestyle and the way that you're living and the things that you're not addressing as opposed to the things that you are addressing. Like we wait to have symptoms and disease to start looking into the problem when our bodies are actually screaming at us a long time before then that something's wrong. And the symptoms and the disease isn't going to show us what the problem is. What will show you what the problem is feeling.
But you know what's funny? You know how like a lot of women and also men now actually get preventative Botox, preventative treatments for their face.
Yeah.
But they get it because it's visible to them, right? But what if we started doing preventative health measures so that we don't end up in situations where it's like, oh, actually, things are really bad now. I need to fix it. Whereas like if we started looking after ourselves before those symptoms showed up, we'd be in a much different position.
Let's be honest, the obvious reason for that is because there's no money in that. Why would we want a proactive health system as opposed to a reactive one? Because a reactive one puts the power to someone else. I need the doctor to fix me. I need the hospital to heal me. I need this treatment or that medication. When we do it proactively, aka let me look after my diet, let me look after my mindset, let me make sure that I'm exercising, let me make sure that I'm sleeping right, let me make sure that I'm feeling my emotions, let me make sure that I have healthy relationships,
that I have a purpose.
And I have a purpose. When you start focusing on these things, guess what? Your sickness rates plummet. This is scientific. This is facts. When you look at this stuff, this is what heals. But we go to the doctors for medication that just suppresses the symptoms further. Most of that is just suppressing, more so the feelings that you're not feeling and the things that you're avoiding. So we've got everything upside down, really. And the problem is that, going back to when we were children, were we taught how to feel our emotions? Where did our parents sit us down and say to us, hey, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. I'm going to sit with you whilst you feel this and we're just going to feel it together. Let me know when you're ready to talk. No, when you're crying, you're told don't cry because it's weak. Don't do that. It's embarrassing. When you're really small and you're throwing a tantrum in the supermarket because your mum or dad told you can't have that toy, they say, this is bad behavior. You're not getting X, Y, and Z when we get home. You're going to be, have all the things that you enjoy taken away from you. So you're getting taught not to express your emotions. But at this young age, even when our nervous system is developing, we don't know how to deal with our emotions. This is where parents come in and we need to co-regulate with the parent, where they teach us like, hey, I get that you're feeling some stuff right now. It seems overwhelming for you. That's fine. Just do what you're doing, let it pass. And then further down the line, you teach them that, hey, okay, rolling on the floor, stamping your feet, screaming and shouting, not the best way to handle it. Let's do it in a better way. This is how. But of course, it's labeled bad behavior. they label it as bad behavior because when they did it, their parents told them it was bad behavior too.
Yeah.
But from the youngest age, where we don't even remember these things, our nervous system is being programmed to not express, not feel, not let out the things that are coming over. So, from kids, we are carrying around emotional baggage, really. All right, it may not be traumatic at this point, but it's still energy that's stuck in the body.
Yeah. Yeah, like for my situation, I obviously was told not to cry quite a lot as a child, and as I got older, I felt shame if I cried. So I would like go and hide in the toilets and cry, or if I was upset at school, I wouldn't let anyone know I was crying. I literally would run to the bathroom, lock myself in the toilet, cry my eyes out, then tidy myself up and wait till I'd like look a bit calmer and then leave. So it's, and this kind of like happened pretty much throughout my entire adulthood as well. I would really suppress it if I ever really wanted to cry. I think only really the past like maybe 2-3 years, probably really since I met you and since we started our healing journey together, I've really started to lean into crying. I think especially this year specifically, I've cried probably more randomly crying as well, where I've never really done that before. Like I've never really just felt like, oh, I feel like I need to cry.
Yeah.
So yeah, but a large part of that for me was shaped in my childhood. I felt so much shame. I used to have this thing that I would say where I'd say, oh, I've just got hay fever, because they used to say it on Tracy Beaker and that's the other thing as well. I was told not to cry, and then I would watch this show about this girl who was going through all this shit, and whenever she was upset and she would cry, she wouldn't let anyone know she was crying because she was tough. And I was always told to be tough. I was, oldest of 5 siblings. I had to hold it down, etc. So that kind of like further reprogrammed me into thinking, oh, well, I need to be that way too, because that's how I'm told by my parents to be that way. She's that way. So like, this must be the way
this is obviously
to be.
normal, yeah.
Exactly. So, she would say, oh, I've got hay fever. So then I would also say, oh, it's just hay fever. I even make that joke into my adulthood, to be fair. It's just hay fever. But obviously I there was something I wanted to cry about.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the reality for a lot of people. We are shaped so much by like our childhood and what that looks like in adulthood. And we don't actually realize it until we take a step back and think, hey, hang on a second. Why do I have this relationship with crying in the way that I do, or being upset? And a lot of the time it's for various reasons, like you're told it's not safe to cry. The environment isn't supportive enough for you to not even necessarily cry, but feel the emotion that you're feeling. So what happens is if you don't have that as you get older, because I think for me, I started to cry when the environment I was in was safe enough for me, and I had to relearn it's actually okay to cry.
Yeah.
It's not a shameful thing. You release cortisol when you cry. You always feel really good after a good cry. And I think, for a lot of people, they don't actually never really actually relearn how to feel the emotion and that it's safe and okay to feel the emotion. And I think the other thing a lot of people potentially get confused with is like being the emotion as opposed to feeling the emotion.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if you're angry about something, a lot of people think, oh, to express my anger, I need to like throw something or yell or scream. And those things feel good because
punch someone.
Yeah, exactly. Those things feel good in the moment because you're releasing the anger in a way, but that's being angry. You're not feeling angry. Feeling anger is sitting with it, figuring out where it is in the body and releasing it that way, right? But a lot of people think, hey, let me punch a wall or let me take you out on someone else.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between, you got to think about, when we're suppressing our emotions and they're in the body, they're creating this pressure that gets felt. And taking anger as an example, eventually that pressure gets so strong that there's an outburst, right? It might look like you say something to me and I tell you to shut the fuck up and really shout and scream at you. Obviously never done that, but it does happen. And what that is like in those moments where you become angry and you punch the wall, you do something like that, you're letting out a little bit of that pressure.
Yeah.
But you're not dealing with the anger that you feel. You're just getting slight relief from it because it's like the kettle's boiling, pressure comes out, it's still bubbling inside.
Yeah.
That's why people usually, I'm still so angry.
And even with sadness.
Yeah.
That's why like sometimes people cry at like the smallest thing and it's like, oh, I just cry at anything. It's like, no, there's obviously something inside you that's bubbling that you've not addressed, which is why it sets you off so easily.
And this is the thing. So these emotions that we don't express, they can come out as the disease and the symptoms and the fatigue, brain fog, digestive issues, things like that. But they can also come out in our actions and our behaviors. But we think like in those moments where we do these things, that's us expressing it. But one, it's in an unhealthy way. And two, it's not actually allowing you to feel the feeling. You're just letting a little bit out of the pressure off to ease the discomfort, but there's still not enough. You're still carrying it around, you know what I mean? So it's, when obviously we've both cried a lot this year, probably more than we ever have, to be honest. It's been a lot of
Yeah,
fun. But
we have. It's true.
what would you say? What would you say really helped you from getting to that point of not being comfortable with crying to where you are now, where you're just crying when you feel like it?
I think one of the things, actually, I'm realizing as we're having this conversation, that actually one of the things is the removal of shame of crying.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my childhood, I was really shamed into thinking crying was bad.
Yeah.
So I never did it in front of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think like my siblings can probably only maybe give you a couple of times where they've seen me cry, because it's not really something that I did in front of them or anyone for that matter. And even in my adulthood, I also was told by people that crying is weak.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally there was like a shame attached to it. It's like, oh, I'm weak, which is bad if I'm crying, so I can't cry. And I think one of the biggest things has been for me to like for that shame to be removed, and it's like, actually it's okay to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And also you always feel really good after crying, so why would you not do it if you feel like you want to
That's
do it?
the thing.
Like I always say this, like there's always a post-cry high. Like who feels shit after they've had a good cry?
Yeah. It's true.
So I think that's one for me, the removal of shame. And I think the second thing is actually the having a safe environment. So actually really you've created a really safe environment for me to be able to cry, and when I feel upset to be able to express it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more that's the more of that I have, the more I'm able to express it and feel safe to express it.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a process, it takes time, but I think as time's going on and the safer I feel and more comfortable I feel, like feeling the emotion, and it's easy for me to express it. And also in front of you as well, like other people.
And this is where I guess the whole part of co-regulation and also, cultivating healthy relationships comes from as well, because we can all try and heal in solitude. It's very easy to put yourself in a little box, keep yourself safe, process whatever you need to process. And don't get me wrong, a part of healing is keeping yourself to yourself and doing those things. But you'll never truly heal until you start going out into the world and experiencing the things that used to trigger you, putting yourself in environments that aren't where you used to put yourself and are actually more reflective of the authentic person that you are now, and building relationships that are now based on love and authenticity and support, as opposed to whatever unfortunate toxic relationship he was in before. Cue the last two podcasts we spoke about all these kind of things. So, and I think a lot of people that we speak to in our community and who ask us this question a lot is that they think that you're just going to press this button and eventually learn to feel. It's like, I don't know how to feel. I just need to be told how to do it and then it'll happen. I'm telling you now, like, feeling it's a process, and it's one that you get to work out every day. Like, I still ignore my feelings sometimes, and I'm sure you do as well. Like, it isn't about always feeling your emotions, but it's about learning that you are feeling something and having and making the space to feel it. And I think that something else that's quite important is the whole, like you said, the healthy environment that you're now in. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't live in a home where they feel safe enough, or they're not around people where they feel safe enough. But I guess the best way I can put this, have you ever left work and like got in the car or something and you just like cried, or you've just got home and you've had a really overwhelming day, and as soon as you got home, everything just catches up on you. Wherever it is for you, if say your home isn't the place where you feel safe, it may be in your car. It may be when you go for that little walk in your lunch break.
For me, it was the bathroom.
It might be the bathroom. It might be you've gone to the bathroom. Somewhere in your life right now, if you can't say, oh, my whole environment is safe, there are pockets of safety. And it's about doing those practices of how do I feel in this moment, checking in with your breath, checking your environment to see what's surrounding you that is going to anchor your body into safety. And this is where you start building the nervous system regulation to start feeling, because a body that is under stress, that is under threat, isn't going to create the space for you to feel. It's worried about keeping you alive. There's no time for feelings. That's why half the stuff that's in us is suppressed anyway, because our body was in the stress response trying to keep us alive for whatever reason, for what was going through. So it's about, okay, thank you for protecting me in that moment, because that's what the body was doing. But we don't have to stay in this zone. We can come back into safety. And in the safety, not only do we start feeling, we start learning to express ourselves as well. And that doesn't just look like setting boundaries, telling people no. It also looks like saying yes to the things that bring us joy in our lives, yes to the things that bring us passion, and yes to the things that we want to pursue, and no to the things that we don't. But we get stuck in this survival, always got to work, always got to be doing, always got to go forward, that, you know, we can't even see the solution to our problem because we're not trying to solve that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And, you know, the nervous system is, you know, when we don't express ourselves, how we're feeling, for example, we dysregulate the nervous system, right? Because we're suppressing. But I think a lot of people don't realize other ways that you can actually dysregulate your nervous system by suppressing is actually suppressing your expression.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean like something like not wearing something that you enjoy wearing at the risk of offending someone or someone having something to say about it. That is a way that you're making yourself small. If you're making yourself feel small in any way, shape, or form, you're suppressing and you're dysregulating, you're creating dysregulation in your nervous system. You're teaching your body it's not safe to be that way. You know, we do regular TikTok lives, and a lot of the times we do vocal activation on it, and a lot of people really struggle to voice and make the sounds during the exercise. But the reality is, the reason they're struggling to do that is because in other areas of their lives, even if you are in touch with your feelings, you might be struggling to express yourself. You know, maybe you're not wearing the thing that you wanted to wear. Maybe you're not saying what you really mean and how you really feel.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not even saying it with your chest. Maybe you're people pleasing a little bit. You know, these are all forms of suppression that people don't realize. Actually, yeah, I am making myself small. I am shying away a little bit from my truth and who I am and being authentically me. And that also is a way that you create stress within yourself that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, because we think that stress is going to work, being stuck in traffic, having an argument with someone, going through something traumatic. Yes, these things are stressful, but how much stress is created in the body from you acting, moving, behaving a way that isn't how the body wants to move, isn't how you are. Because you might not be consciously thinking in a conversation like, hey, I'm not saying what I'm feeling right now. I don't agree with you. And it's not like in an argumentative way. It's just a normal conversation where you're just like, let me not voice my opinion because this time at school when I said something that I believed in, everybody laughed at me. Your nervous system remembers that and it's now trying to keep you safe in those situations where it's reminded that this is similar, right?
Yeah.
So now because of it, you make yourself small. But in this conversation, you're not consciously thinking this, but the body is. And the body wants to express itself, but you're stopping it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And also as well, you know, this is for example, if you're like at work, for example, you're meant to finish at 5 o'clock, your boss comes over to you and he's like, hey, you know, I need you to stay for another hour. You really want to say no, but you've said yes. Now what's happened is you've gone against what you actually truly want and you've created a feeling of unsafety in your body by saying yes.
Yeah.
And the next time you go to work, you're probably going to feel a little bit anxious because your body doesn't feel safe that you're going to make the right choice for what you actually truly want. And then now every time you go to work, you're feeling a little more anxious every time and you can't figure out why. And it's because, you know, something, even though it seems something really small, like you said yes when you really want to say no, that is again, suppression of expression and it's creating dysregulation. So, you know, sometimes speaking your truth, saying it with your whole chest it really is as simple as that to like come out of that and start healing it.
And the thing is, I would say it's one of the most life-changing things that you'll do is like to actually step into the you know, highest version of yourself is to start expressing, speaking your mind and, you know, standing up for yourself in a way.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. If ever you're making yourself small for whatever reason it is, to make someone else feel better, to fit in, to not be rejected, you're like putting a dagger to yourself. And the body feels it every time. Every time the body is being let down by this. And it's like the relationship that you're building with your body, you're destroying because you need the trust to heal.
Yeah.
Every time you say that you're going to do something and you don't do it, the body hears you and goes, oh. So then the next time, the body then goes, well, you said this last time, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So you're training yourself to not believe yourself. That's why so many people find it so hard to start something because they've conditioned themselves to, you know, always talk themselves into doing something but never taking action. And now the body is just like, I haven't got the energy for this. Like we've been here.
I don't believe you.
You're just words, no action. So it's, you know, one of the best things you do is start taking action, small steps every single day.
Yeah.
Don't do the big leaps, go from there. But it all comes down to how you feel at the end of the day. If you're not taking the action, why? Do you know what I mean? Because there is a reason for it. Do you not believe in yourself? Are you overwhelmed at the minute? Is it too much responsibility you're taking on? Because, you know, we spoke about in an earlier podcast about procrastination being a state of freeze, right? Because, you know, you do want to do the things, but you're procrastinating because you are so overwhelmed as it is. You can't take on any more stuff. But we ignore the feeling of overwhelm. Like, I don't know how long ago it was now, like 6 months ago, maybe, when I had like let's call it a breakdown. I didn't realize it because I was working so fast, trying to do too much at once. My body made me stop. And then I was like, oh my God. One thing, I guess, with my family popped the balloon and was like the final straw. And then it all came crushing up. And I was just like, oh, right. I've been ignoring how I've been feeling this whole time. And my body can't take on all this stress. I need to stop.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't have to get to that point. But this is even coming from me, someone who is practicing feeling my feelings and is doing nervous system regulation. There was still this thing that I was ignoring. So yeah, food for thought.
Yeah, you know how you're saying that, like, why are people not taking the step to feel their feelings, express themselves, be authentically them? I think sometimes it is a little scary, and I think sometimes we don't know what to expect. You know, I mentioned this in the previous podcast. Like, I had a friend who, a lot of my friends actually fell out with me. Or not fall out with me, did they just kind of fell off? Nobody fell out, they just kind of fell off. And they dissipated, right? And I'm making it sound like they, you know, puffed into smoke, but they didn't. They just disappeared in the sense that, like, our friendship faded. And what I realized is the more that I started to express myself, the more that I started to become authentically me, being who I wanted, doing the things that I loved and chasing the things that I wanted, that these friends disappeared slowly. And I mentioned that I had one specific friend who more so recently has kind of like faded away. And I think when I look back to that friendship, a lot of the time I was keeping myself very small. You know, and I mentioned this obviously earlier in this podcast, like even something as silly as like not wearing what you want to wear at the risk of like upsetting someone or making someone feel a certain way. That's a form of suppression. And I did this. I would not dress a certain way, or I would wear less eccentric clothing to accommodate this friend, let's call it. But what happened is, as I started to step into my most authentic self, as I started to express myself more and started to chase my dreams and do more things and then share these things with this person, that obviously triggered something in them. And that, you know, as you grow and as you become the person that you're supposed to be, the authentic person that you're supposed to be, this will happen. You are going to trigger other people. And it's about just being okay with that and getting comfortable with it as well, because that wasn't something that I anticipated that would happen. But I remember sitting there for ages and thinking, why has this happened? Because I was really upset about it. And then you have the realization like, oh, actually, this is just part of the journey. But, you know, as sad as that situation was, the realization is, hey, hang on a second. Now that I'm actually being the person that I am, the person that is authentically me, and I'm doing the things that I want, I will attract the right people into my life. I will attract the right scenarios into my life, and I'll get to where I'm meant to be. And that's just the reality of it. You know, you said it in I think in the last episode, like everything that you want is on the other side of what you're avoiding feeling.
Yeah.
And once we start actually really just tapping into how we feel and expressing ourselves and actually just being honest about who we are and how we want to be, you'll get to where you want to be.
The irony is, isn't it, is that the life that we're living before we step into being authentically us is the life that isn't authentically for us. Yet we're so scared of letting it go.
Yeah.
What are you losing? The life that isn't meant for you. So what is there to lose? There's everything to gain because you're stepping into the life that is meant for you, the one that will bring you joy, peace, happiness, love. And you're letting go of the friends, relationships, environments that you didn't need.
Yeah, because we're attached to them, aren't we? And I think that's the thing. That's like the thing that I think sometimes we don't like consciously realize that that's what's holding us back. Because there was no reason for me to be making myself small.
No.
There wasn't. But I did, because I wanted that friendship to work.
Yeah.
I wanted things to be smooth. I wanted that person to be happy, and I wanted to have that friendship because it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
But the reality is, why should I have to make myself small in any way, shape, or form for anybody? Because if that does trigger you, then that's not got anything to do with me. That's got everything to do with you.
Yeah.
And I hope you figure it out. And I think that's just how you have to be. And I think that's just the reality of it. You know, when we start moving through it and having that realization, like, actually, I deserve to have everything that I want to have.
Yeah.
And there's no reason that you should feel anything other than that. You deserve everything you want.
Yeah, we shine our light so others get the permission to shine theirs too. We don't dim it to make them feel bright, you know? So yeah, if there is a main takeaway from this podcast, it is the F word, which is feelings. Feel more. I promise you, your feelings will never hurt you. It is a practice that you're probably not good at because you were never taught, and that's okay. Don't blame yourself for this. That isn't your fault. But what is your fault is if you choose now not to do anything about it. But, you know, it is a journey. There's no destination. It's just called life. You will always feel things. There's always going to be new things to feel. There's always going to be experiences that bring you from all ends of the spectrum, the emotions that exist. This is the beautiful human experience. we do have a bit of homework for you as well. I believe this one is from our Let That Shit Go
It
program.
is.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them what it is?
Yeah, okay then. So this week's tip is, if you are someone who struggles to feel confident in your expression, confident in saying what you mean, saying with your chest, expressing how you feel, what we recommend is putting on a song that makes you feel like an absolute queen or king or whatever you want to say, and sing it in the mirror to yourself and act like it's your song, it's your music video, you're the main character, you're the star, and start getting comfortable with your expression, start getting comfortable with yourself and expressing yourself and seeing what that looks like. And over time, I know it seems like, hey, you just want me to sing in the mirror? Yes. But over time, what will happen is you will see how that will transpire into other areas of your life. When we start expressing and getting comfortable with being who we are and how we are, because before we can show other people who we are and how we are, we have to get comfortable with who we are ourselves. So this exercise will allow you to get comfortable and confident in who you are and expressing yourself. And then you will find that it will transpire into other areas of your life. So try it.
Don't just listen, try it. We're not listeners here, we're action takers, right? And if you do want to go even deeper than that, this is just one exercise in our Let That Shit Go program, which is centered around, of course, regulating your nervous system, teaching your body to be safe again so that it can then feel and express what's gone unexpressed. So if you're ready to let that shit go, we'll put the link in the bio so you can see if it's a good fit for you. But other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week for another episode. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.